Federal case out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Massachusetts is reigniting the debate over election integrity. Lina Maria Orovio Hernandez is now a convicted felon after being found guilty of using a stolen identity to vote in the 2024 U.S. election. Let's bring in Jonathan Turley, constitutional law professor and Fox News contributor. So, Professor, it's good to have you with us today. Not only did she vote in the election, but she lived illegally in Boston for more than 2 decades on a stolen identity, received more than $400,000 in stolen benefits. The U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, Leah Foley, said it's a slap in the face to all those who come into this country legally and abide by our laws. The air of entitlement is astounding. What do you say, Professor?
Well, John, this is one example of the cost of this type of fraud and the interrelationship between illegal immigration, fraud, including voting fraud, that we're facing around the country. I mean, this isn't one individual who came close to about $500,000, $500,000 in fraud, as well as the voting violation. And she did that by getting false identities, using those cards to get even more identification, and it sort of took off from there. But it's really breathtaking when you look at just these individual cases with almost $500,000 of fraud for one person. And you get a glimpse as to why we are looking at billions of dollars that have been burned through in this country. We're becoming a nation of chumps. That is, we have to deal with the interrelationship of election fraud, financial fraud, that is connected to unlawful immigration.
Right, and President Trump says this is one reason why we need the SAVE Act, where people have to have a legitimate ID. This woman did have an ID, it was a stolen ID. But the president is saying that we need the SAVE Act, which is sort of stalled in Congress right now. Chuck Schumer calls that Jim Crow 2.0, but he seems to be on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue. Listen to how he gets caught here in an interview with a friendly network. Listen to this.
A new Pew Research poll that 95% of Republicans, but also 71% of Democrats like this idea. So why do you not?
It's Jim Crow 2.0, and I called it Jim Crow 2.0, and the right wing went nuts all over the internet. That's because they know it's true.
All right, so is it Jim Crow 2.0? Black voters, do they favor a photo ID to vote? 75% of them say yes. So even though he's told, look, this isn't Jim Crow 2.0, he says, yes, it is. But clearly it's not.
No, it's absurd, and it's insulting to many in the civil rights movement that faced laws that were justifiably denounced on these grounds. This is requiring an identification of vote. Senator Ossoff just held a rally in which he required people to show their IDs so they could hear him talk about policies like his opposition to showing an ID to vote. Yeah. I mean, there's a certain incomprehensive quality to all of this, and I'm afraid that Schumer shows that many in the Democratic Party have jumped the shark on this. They have tried to ratchet up the rhetoric to try to reverse this, but the American people are very clear. They see no reason why you shouldn't have to show an identification to get on a plane and to vote.
Well, if, as you say, Democrats have jumped the shark on this issue, it's not new, because listen to Kamala Harris back in 2021 was asked about her opposition to voter ID.
Because in some people's mind, that means, well, you're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't. There's no Kinko's, there's no Office Max near them.
I don't even know where to begin.
Well, the reason is because it's so deeply insulting to American citizens. That's why this is an 80-20 issue. People are hearing that and saying, what on earth are you talking about? But also keep in mind that the SAVE Act allows states to create systems, even for people whose name has changed, for example, the divorce, so that they can vote. But this idea that showing an ID is this insurmountable obstacle for many Democratic voters is just deeply insulting.
Yeah, and we go back to 75% of black voters favor showing ID. So, I mean, for them, it's a 75-25 issue. For a lot of other people, it's an 80-20 issue. For Republicans, it's like 95-5. Professor, as always, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
All right, we'll see you again soon. Sandra?
All right. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's husband had ownership stakes in companies that were worth $51,000 in 2023. But in 2024, that number jumped to as much as $30 million. Now, other lawmakers want answers. Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram is on the Hill on this today as Republicans try to follow the money. Where is it leading them, Chad?
Sandra, good afternoon. The jump appears on the couple's financial disclosure reports. Those reports also give brackets of income. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comey is launching an investigation. He's not leaving it to the Ethics Committee.
The Ethics Committee does not have jurisdiction over a spouse, only a member. So that's why we just asked, we would have questions. I don't think anyone would.
It would pertain to her overall finances because that is listed on her financial disclosure report.
Well, we've run this by the Ethics Committee and we think this is the appropriate route.
There's a long history about lawmakers taking office and then raking in cash. There are similar questions about the income of Omar's fellow squad member, Ayanna Pressley. Her income also swelled since coming to office. The Omar investigation is part of the Oversight Committee's probe looking at fraud in Minnesota.
If she's being transparent and there's nothing to see, then the investigation will go great and the American people will be happy with the results. But I think the American people are tired of people going to Congress and getting incredibly wealthy in a short period of time, and they want answers.
Omar contends she did nothing wrong. Omar says her wealth came from her husband. Democrats tried to pivot from the Omar inquiry to the Epstein files.
There's a House Ethics Committee, so we should be focused on who raped these underage girls, who committed these crimes, and why we have a rich and powerful class that feels they're above the law.
Do you think they're trying to pin that on her?
I don't know, but I've been on the Oversight Committee now 10 years. There's a different procedure for House Ethics, which we have.
Now, Omar's husband, Tim Minot, saw an increase in income thanks to his consulting business. They also invested in a California wine operation. It's now defunct. Fox is told that their label has not made wine in several years. Sandra?
Okay. Chad Pergram reporting on the Hill on that for us. Chad, thank you.
I don't need permission from Donald Trump or the federal government to do what I know is important to protect the people of my state.
The gloves are off in New York as Governor Hochul doubles down on the state's sanctuary policies. The panel here to talk about that.
All right, they're ready to go. And we are now less than 6 hours until that deadline for the Guthrie family to meet ransom demands. We are live in Tucson next.